Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. In the last few days there's been lots of discussion about Lewis Hamilton and how long he might potentially stay in Formula 1, but Charles Leclerc may have gone one better, implying that if Ferrari gave him a contract to stay there for his entire career, he would do exactly that. Does he know what the Ferrari team has been up to so far this season? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always, I would greatly appreciate it, really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. The Japanese fans as always this weekend, absolutely spectacular. First of all, a quick note on the cost cap. Paul Dresta, who we know might not be the most unbiased source, says the following effectively, that you can't rewind the championship 10 months later, saying that like, look, Verstappen won the championship, whatever happens with the cost cap, you have to move forward and accept that as being the result. Now, interesting perspective, of course, and I think he raises an interesting point, right? Like, do you want to set a precedent where even 9-10 months after a driver won the championship, where that driver is still not fully sure they're going to win in case there was a cost cap breach per their team in the previous season? That's obviously not an ideal situation, but at the same time, it's one where, look, if Red Bull had spent $500 million and were 3 times the cost cap, then surely you would have to do something about that, right? So, you know, a small breach, you have to make your mind up on what is an appropriate punishment in that instance. If that is indeed the case, we shall find out on Monday. But also, it's a thing in other sports as well. For example, like you guys may remember, Usain Bolt had 9 gold medals out of 9 races across the 100 meters, 200 meters and 4x100 meters relay across 2008, 2012 and 2016 at the Olympic Games in each of those 3 years. Now, like only a few years ago, like almost a decade, I'm pretty sure, after he won his 4x100 meter relay gold in 2008, one of his teammates, I believe it might have been Frater or Carter, forget exactly who it was, but they were, well, one of their samples was found to be positive for like a whatever performance enhancing drug, and therefore the kind of the gold medal and the title was taken away from Jamaica in that year and was given to the second place team. So like this happens in sports where a long time later, like the time span doesn't necessarily matter so much. If a team was cheating, then, you know, the medal gets stripped is just kind of how it works. Now, obviously it's not ideal to have this occur, but like, I mean, look, it's been the case in athletics. If someone was found to be cheating even years or decades later, then, you know, those titles get stripped. So we'll see, of course, because like there are other potential repercussions for breaking the cost cap. Like we'll see what happens over the coming days, but there's different sources and different opinions right now, certainly on what the FIA should do if a breach has been found, and we should find out on Monday. And I also believe that if a breach is or is not found, there is no appeals process here. So if whatever they decide effectively is final, and there's no way for any team to appeal it. So we'll see if that causes controversy. I'm certain that it will. We know how Formula 1 works. Speaking of Lewis Hamilton, though, of course, there's been discussions on how long he's going to stay around. He says, look, if he's still fit and able to focus, he still loves what he's doing, why would I stop? And I can still do the other things I want to do at the same time as well. So effectively saying that, like, look, he's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. He even implied recently that, yeah, he's not just going to stick around for this season and the next. He's going to be around for a couple of more years beyond that if he can. I'm sure he's looking at Fernando Alonso still driving, like, you know, not maybe quite prime Alonso, but not too far off in fairness. I think this season for Alonso, apart from all the DNFs, has been probably one of his best seasons ever in his career, to be honest, with the machinery that he's got. I'm sure Hamilton sees that and thinks, damn, I can't let this Alonso guy, you know, outdo me for longevity. I'm going to stay around as well. So he was kind of saying it. Even Toto Wolff was mentioning that we could see Hamilton around for, you know, 5 more years. Apparently Hamilton told Toto Wolff, saying, look, I've got another 5 years in me. So we'll see how this goes. If Mercedes get back to being competitive, then I'm sure Hamilton will want to stick around. If next year's car also is a struggle, he might think, you know what, how much confidence do I have in this team to actually become the top dogs yet again? I'm sure he does, but he doesn't want to go out with his career on a whimper. So, you know, that's a decision that has to be made on Hamilton's front over the coming couple of seasons. Now, the other part of this, of course, is the Leclerc discussion, and we expect, you know, Leclerc, Verstappen, Russell, maybe that next generation in a sense, to have some great battles over the coming years. And as he says here, I think it would be good fun for Hamilton to stay 5 more years. I definitely enjoyed being teammates with Lewis, and having that opportunity to go up against the greatest of all time is a fantastic opportunity for me to develop and show what I can do. We have a really strong relationship. I think the different stages of our career help us that have that transparency, and the fact that we have gone through a bit of a tough time with performance this season, we're about to come together to push the team forward and build a good bond throughout, etc, etc. Now, on the other side of this equation, of course, lies Charles Leclerc. So we believe that Verstappen, I mean, he's got that contract signed with Red Bull until 2028. We don't know what his plans are after that. We expect Verstappen to be with Red Bull for a very long time to come. Same with Hamilton. He will finish his career, of course, in the Mercedes. But what is going to happen to Charles Leclerc? Because this season has obviously started so well for him. He had that massive lead after the first few races. after winning in Bahrain, second in Saudi Arabia, winning in Australia, double DNF in first and third races for Verstappen. Looked also good for Leclerc to go on to take this championship, and Ferrari were looking in pole position. Very quickly, it all fell apart. The DNFs, the strategical errors, it's not been good for Leclerc. Now, yes, this car on paper for the first part of the season was the best car and probably remained the best car until only a few races ago. But yeah, Ferrari, their upgrades didn't quite work as planned. Their strategy, their team calls and stuff, without Mercedes having a poor time in Singapore, like they might be in a situation where they're really struggling to hold on to second in the constructors and become, well, end up third in a two-horse race. Still could happen. Who knows? Ferrari do Ferrari things. Leclerc said after Belgium he knew that basically the title was done and dusted, but he was asked the question very recently, if Ferrari offered you a lifetime contract, would you sign it? He doesn't say yes, but he says staying in red forever would be a dream. Driving for Ferrari is the dream of any driver, and I am living it, right? So basically just saying yes. Now, this is interesting. Of course, Leclerc's not going to not say this, right? Like if someone asks you if you want to stay with your team for your entire career, you're not exactly going to say no. Leclerc is smarter than to say this. And also, Ferrari is Ferrari. Like every driver kind of wants to drive for Ferrari at one point in their career, but you could argue that there are certain drivers that Ferrari has ruined to a certain extent, right? Obviously, people say that about Vettel to some degree. And I mean, look, Leclerc has had a couple of difficult seasons in the Ferrari. He's been there for quite some time now. This season has arguably been the most difficult in some senses because he finally thought, I'm sure for quite some time, he had a championship winning car, and then it all fell apart rather quickly, largely due to Ferrari's mistakes, either with their, you could argue they pushed their engine design too far in terms of the levels they were running it at. The last few races that we believe, Ferrari have turned their engine down somewhat to make sure it doesn't explode effectively, which it was doing early on in the season, so maybe that was a mistake that they made. Various strategic errors throughout the season that have annoyed Leclerc, Monaco, Silverstone, a couple of good examples that obviously just scratches the surface, really. So Leclerc, I'm sure, believes that he's got a good team in place and everything's going to be okay, but it is still interesting, right? If Leclerc does indeed think that, like, look, I'm not going to go anywhere. If Ferrari want to keep me, I will stay forever. Like, how's that going to end? Because Ferrari haven't won a championship in a very long time at this point. They haven't even won around Suzuka since, I think, 2004, maybe 2006. It's been a long time coming. And in fairness, the intention, as Bonotto did mention, was for this season Ferrari to be competitive and then next year to push on for the championship win. But like, look, until significant changes happen within an organization, it's difficult to see Ferrari being a consistent contender for the entire season. And Leclerc as a driver is in an interesting spot as well. Obviously, fantastic driver, great qualifiers as we have seen, but in terms of having the balls maybe to call out Ferrari on some of their mistakes and being like a Schumacher type character, he's not really there. And I think even some have said, I think maybe it was Damon Hill who mentioned the fact that Sainz shows more leadership characteristics. So what do you guys think about this? Would you like to see Leclerc at Ferrari for his entire career? Would you like to see, I don't know, when Hamilton does retire, if Leclerc is still going strong, like, could he step into another top team? Difficult to say. And of course, like, just because he says this doesn't mean it's going to be the case, of course, but I'm sure, like, he's got to look to some degree at his team and think, well, is this really the best place? I'm sure he realizes that. And if he could just go and drive in the Red Bull, he probably would, like to drive in the Red Bull, especially with the team that they've got. And even with Mattia Binotto kind of saying that, yeah, you know what, we don't actually make that many strategic mistakes and there's no need to change our decisions and our team is very good and we have great strategy teams. It's like, it's going to take a good few years, you think, potentially, and also maybe a new team principal, who knows, or complete change to the structure to make Ferrari actually have a winning team. Maybe they just come up with an absolute monster car that can win them a championship without needing to worry about these other things. But to beat Red Bull and certainly to beat Mercedes, if they have a competitive car next season, Ferrari need to be the full package. And Leclerc is a great driver, but he can't do it all. So I think it would be somewhat of a mistake if down the line, if Leclerc does have other offers from other top teams, to at least not consider them, because we've seen in the past, even, drivers like Fernando Alonso, but for different reasons, have maybe made questionable career decisions which have hurt them down the line. And, I wouldn't really want that to happen to Charles Leclerc if he does get, let's just say, a better offer. But of course, it depends what Ferrari look like in a few years' time. Ferrari is built different to other racing teams. It makes sense why he'd want to stay for a very long time. But if it doesn't win him a World Drivers' Championship in the next 2 or 3 years, I'm sure he'll be considering his future as well. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.